Welcome to the second episode of our show, which is still unnamed. More about that later on. For those of you who haven't seen last week's episode, the show is divided into three sections: an interview of someone interesting in gliding, a summary of this week's gliding news, and concludes with a weekend weather forecast from Jake Brattle. Today, we're talking to junior British team pilot Oli Ramsey about his flying at the UK Nationals last week, and we'll be discussing his flying journey so far. Following this, we'll cover some gliding news, we'll then talk about naming the show, and finally, Jake will take a look at the weather for the weekend. First up, here's Oli Ramsey. Oli is just 18 and last week he was flying at the UK Nationals and sitting his A-level exams. He had to miss out one of the competition days due to one exam getting in the way. He won a competition day the same day he sat his physics exam, and despite these challenges, he still ended up in the top 10. He joins us now from Essendon, where he is training for the Junior Worlds.
So I'm part of the junior British gliding team, flying in the standard class with Henry, who's a very experienced junior pilot. I quit my part-time job and I've just finished my A-levels, so it's sort of a very busy summer of pure gliding really, which is quite cool.
Excellent. So recently you were at the Nationals.
It's my first standard class Nationals which I've ever competed in, which was a very fun week. 6 days of flying for me. I had to not fly on Thursday because I had A-levels, which is obviously a bit annoying, but it's a very key part of life to do. So I had a very intense days of 6 flying, and it was very cool. It was very tricky flights and stuff, but I really enjoyed it. I had lots of practice with Henry in quite variable weather, and sort of exploring lots of parts of the UK. So you went into Wales once and saw all the big mountains, which was quite scary, but it was very cool. I think I went all right. I've had a 2-day wins, which was very cool for me. I've never had a day win at a Nationals before, so it was nice to sort of stand on the podium and tell everyone how I did it, which was a new experience for me. Paul Fritsch was listening, who's on the senior team, listening to us on the radio and giving us tips on how to improve, which was very useful for our flying and preparation and stuff. It was also very good it's my first competition in the LS8, so it was very good to practice like filling up every morning and flying at 525 kilos amongst lots of other standard class gliders, and get a very intense week of practicing, because I was hoping for a few scrub days to sort out some admin stuff, but we didn't get any of those. So it was very sort of full-on flying wise. It was very cool.
Well, that's good, especially for a British competition. One of your day wins was an interesting one. I hear that apparently you did your A-level exam in the morning.
Yeah, so I think it was Monday or Tuesday. I had a physics A-level in the morning, starting at 9 and finishing at 11. It's an hour and a half drive to the airfield, so I went home the night before and sat the exam the next day, and finished the exam at 11. I could see the cumulus already popping in the sky as I was sat in the exam, and I thought, well, I have to race to the airfield now. So I was going as fast as I legally could, and got there, and it hadn't even launched yet, even though this beautiful sky was happening, and I'd done very little prep, sort of planning the task and stuff. And I basically just had a flight where I could kind of relax, because I've just done a very important exam for me, and I ended up doing quite well, I think quite luckily. But it was a very cool sort of day where going from exam in the morning to sort of winning a day at Nationals with a bunch of very experienced and much better pilots than I am flying with me. So it was a very cool day.
So did you have your glider ready on the grid, or how would you the logistics of it?
I filled it up the night before, ready in advance, and my teammate Henry very, very kindly put it on the grid, ready for me. And I essentially turned up. Everything was in the glider ready. I just had to put in the task and go flying. So it was very, very grateful for the people that helped me to sort of have a very good day that day, and very efficient.
And then I can see now you're in a tent. So tell us about where you are now.
I'm currently in Essendon, which is in France, doing the British team training. So it's sort of a week of training and then a week of competition flying at the Essendon International with the squad and the development squad. And we have a few lovely coaches, Paul Fritsch and Tom Arscott's just sort of guide us juniors how we can basically improve our flying. And essentially Essendon is a perfect site. It's in the middle of France, and it's flatlands, and they're all very laid back here. And we have a launch time of 1 p.m. every day, so it gives everyone that time to prepare the flight beforehand and then fly it, but with that extra preparation before, where they can talk to coaches and talk to more experienced pilots, and really get into the pre-flight routine that everyone has in the British team. And then we have a lovely day's flying where the weather is sort of it's very variable and it's very challenging, but we debrief in the evenings. So we look at everyone's traces, everyone's stats for the day, and sort of deduce what people did differently to win the day or lose the day, basically. And it's very, very intense learning, but very, very useful.
Nice. So this training, what are you training for?
Personally, I'm training for sort of trying to improve my team flying ahead of the Junior Worlds in just over two or 3 weeks' time with Henry. For me personally, it's a week where I can practice the team flying bits now, especially on a busy radio channel, because we've got all the other development squad members. So it's sort of being able to manage my workload personally in the cockpit, as well as being able to give information out that Henry can use to improve his flights.
Excellent. And so is this is your first Junior Worlds?
Yeah, this is my first Junior Worlds. I feel very privileged to be selected for the team. I'm obviously quite young and a lot more inexperienced than everyone else. I'm only 18 years old, so it's going to be quite an experience for me. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity where I can hopefully learn a lot and try and perform as well as I can.
I really want to talk to you a bit about your flying and sort of how you got here, because obviously you're quite young and you've got a lot of success under your belt. Is being part of the team something you've always wanted to do?
When I initially started gliding, I didn't really know much about anything. So I went for a powered flight at my local airfield, and one of the older guys there was like, "Oh, you should go give gliding a go." And I was like, "Oh, well, if you say so, I'll go and do it." So I went and did that, and I really enjoyed it. And I went to the airfield every day for.
And how old were you then?
I was 13 at the time, so I did all the training and went solo on my 40th birthday, which was quite cool, and got the day off school, so lots of fun stuff. But when I was at that sort of post solo, not really sure what to do next kind of stage, I discovered the junior gliding team Facebook page, and I sort of had a browse through there, and I thought, oh, these guys must be well famous, right? I had this impression in my mind that when I first met Toby Freeland and Finn Slurd, asked for their autographs and be such a fanboy. I met them a few years later. Obviously, it wasn't anything like that. It was pretty cool, but they're sort of it's like a thing that I kind of aspired to be in after going solo and sort of learning about cross country and stuff. And lockdown, especially for me, where Condor, everyone did a lot of Condor and the UK junior gliding sort of really pushed for that momentum. It was really cool for me because I met a load of people sort of in the online world where it's quite difficult, especially in gliding where there's not really much online world because everyone just does it in real life. So it was quite cool to meet people and sort of expand my horizon of what's possible in gliding. And I think that's a massive factor of what's got me here today.
Looking back, from going solo to where you're now, what's sort of been the biggest challenge in your gliding career? What have you found the hardest to overcome?
I think the hardest thing for me was figuring out how I can so especially from going cross country on my own to my first competition, was how I can look at my own flights and think, oh, I haven't done very well here, or I've done quite well here. I just never had that confidence to look at my flights like that and figure out what I was looking at. And that's where the junior nationals really helped me, because they have sort of quite focused debrief sessions on what to do better. And that's sort of where I've sort of gone from not knowing what I'm looking at to, oh, this is where I've gone wrong. I've been cruising 5 knots too slow, 10 knots too slow. And I think that's been a really useful thing for me.
So would you say that's something you definitely need a coach for? Or is that something you can, if somebody explains to you what you're looking at, you could figure out yourself?
I think it's definitely something where you need a fair bit of guidance to know what you're looking at. Because when you chuck a trace into CU, there's a lot of figures and numbers, and 50% of them are very relevant, but 50% of them aren't, and it's sort of knowing which ones to look at, and which ones to compare to other pilots who've flown that day and stuff that really makes a difference.
All right then, and then so looking towards the future, what are your goals with gliding? Where do you want to go? Where do you see it going?
I don't really know. I haven't really put much thought to it. I'm sort of living in the moment a lot at the moment. I've been selected for the British team. I was like, this is my chance to improve with all the coaching and stuff. I think my long-term goal would be sort of get as good as I can get and be able to give back to people who were like me sort of 2 years ago, who sort of needed that encouragement to get into cross country and stuff, and help them to improve with their flying. I think that'd be a really cool thing to do, sort of teach the new generation who are like me, basically, get into cross country flying and learn to enjoy sport. And because when you first join a gliding club, you never think, people go and do loads and loads of kilometers of flying. You don't see that part of gliding because you're always like, this is a circuit, right? This is your downwind part, and this is your high key and your low key. And I think the sort of giving back and being like, this is what we can do in gliding would be a really cool thing to do. Like, this is a 200k flight, and this is like a bimble for us, basically. I think that'd be a really cool thing to give back to gliding.
So we need to look forward to you becoming a coach then.
Well, it's an aspiration really, but it'd be very cool to do it. Yeah.
Have you got any sort of hopes for the Worlds?
I haven't really. I need to sit down basically and say, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve out of this. But I haven't got around to that yet. Cause I was hoping to at the standard class nationals, and we flew for 7 days, and it's been a very busy time. But I need to sit down and discuss. But it'd be nice to sort of come in the top half and have really just improve throughout the week.
We'll have to catch up with you then afterwards, and you can tell us how it all went then.
Well, I'd be very privileged to come back on the interview show. So yeah.
Well, speaking of, as you sort of mentioned already, indicated we haven't got a name for it. So, what's your suggestion for a name?
Oh, I'm terrible with this stuff. It's like group chat names. You never know what to say. Soaring Stories, maybe, or something would be.
Soaring Stories. I like Soaring Stories. Anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to get across to people?
I'd just like to thank Navboys for the generous sponsorship they give to the British gliding team and the junior British gliding team. It's all very useful stuff. We don't really get very much opportunities to broadly announce that we really appreciate it, but it is absolutely fantastic, the support they give us. I can message Jake Brattle at any time on any day, and he very quickly replied to it, and it's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't ask for a better sponsorship relationship, really. So it's perfect.
Well, that wasn't planned, but great. That will definitely make it in the video. All right. Well, again, thanks for that. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for the great name suggestion. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it when it goes live.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks again, Ollie. Now on to some gliding news. The UK Nationals, as you just saw, came to a close last Sunday. They flew an impressive 7 out of the 9 days and covered some decent distance. The 2024 champions are, in the 15-metre class, Lee Wells; in the standard class, Jez Hood; in the open class, Andy Davis. Congratulations. Also last weekend, we saw some very exciting footage coming from the air show in Leszno in Poland, namely a helicopter Aerotow. Definitely want to keep in a low tow position for that one. Euroglide is underway. It is a unique take on gliding competitions where the pilots have several days to complete a 2,500 kilometer task. They pick the route they fly, where they take off, where they land each day. The first one back wins. Mr. Skysight, or Matt Scudder if you like, is taking part and is creating some great videos of his journey so far. Unfortunately, on day 2 of the competition, there was a fatal accident. Day 3 was cancelled in memory of the pilot, and our thoughts go out to his friends and family. Sebastian Kawa is on his way to Pakistan to soar K2, but his latest posts indicate that he is stuck at the border. If he and his team make it, it will be a really cool flight. Speaking of enterprising flying, Competition Enterprise is coming up. This year it's at Yorkshire Gliding Club and starts on the 6th of July. This is another unique take on gliding competitions where the pilots have to work out how to best use the day to accumulate the maximum number of distance points and bonus points. Bonus points may include flying to the coast or flying to another country, for example. Saltby are hosting the Open Aerobatics Championship on the 12th to the 14th of July. There are still a few places left, so if you like looking up and seeing grass, this might be the event for you. Navboys news, we are hiring. We'll be advertising for a new shop role very soon. See our careers page for details. If you're in the market for an LX9000, drop us an email because there's currently a great deal from LXNav. Last week, we asked you for show names and you delivered. Here are some of our favourites. Let us know in the comments which one you like best, or if you have a better ideas, please let us know. First up, we got Soaring Stories from Oli Ramsey, as you heard previously. Then somebody suggested NavChat. We also had NavChat, and somebody else suggested NavChat. Twisting it a little, we got NavShow, Overglide, and finally, one of my favourites, Sherry McShowface. A final note from me. If you like what we're doing and want to help us grow, the best thing you can do is leave a comment. Tell us who you'd like to see on the show. That's all from me, and now we go over to Jake with the weather.
Thank you, Dorian. Okay, let's take a look at the weather for this weekend. Starting off with the Met Office surface pressure charts. So midnight Thursday night going into Friday morning, we had this low pressure over the north of Scotland, which is now moving away to the north. And for this weekend, we've got a sort of northern Atlantic air mass, which is moving in over the course over the whole of the UK. On Saturday during the day, in the south and sort of Midlands, the weather's going to be dominated by this warm front and cold front just behind it, this system moving in from the southwest. And then as the day goes on, that system sort of dissipates away overnight. And then looking at Sunday, we've got a relatively decent air mass across most of the UK. The north is maybe going to be dominated by these fronts to the north, and we've got a warm followed immediately by a cold front off to the west. Maybe looking into next week, if this high pressure can have more of an influence, we might have a half reasonable air mass for next week. Okay, looking at the general weather forecast for the weekend. Saturday, we're looking at Kinross, which is where the Scottish Gliding Centre is located, because the weather looks quite good there tomorrow. They've got a fairly stiff westerly wind with sunny and cloudy conditions, so it looks quite reasonable. Highs of 15 degrees, a cold air mass the night before. And looking at Sunday looks a bit wetter, but further down the UK, Sunday looks pretty good. So we'll take a look at that on SkySight in a second. Then I like to always compare that with the Met Office, because the weather comes from a different source. So looking at Saturday, looks largely in line with what we've just seen from the BBC. That's good. Similar temperatures, similar wind strengths. And Sunday doesn't look as bad on the Met Office for Kinross for Portmoak. And looking at SkySight, so PFD for Saturday, and as I say, it's looking good up sort of south end of Scotland, the very, very north of England, and even across Northern Ireland. It's looking good. And then right in the south of the UK, it looks reasonable, so they might have a good day down at Lasham and places along the south coast. And then looking at Sunday's not quite as nice up in the north. Midlands doesn't look too good, and then down in the south again looks quite reasonable. For those of you that are less familiar with SkySight, what I would usually do in the morning of the day that I'm going flying is I would just work down this left-hand column here and just look at the thermal strength and boundary shear ratio. That gives an idea of how strong the thermals are. We'll just centre down in, this is looking down at the south of England on Sunday, and at 2:30 PM it's looking like there could be 3.5 knots, 4 knot thermals, and you can see the dotted effect, the mottled, that indicates how difficult the thermals are going to be to centre. So it actually looks quite good in this area on the Sunday. And then you could go and look at the cloud base, you can go and look at overdevelopment, overall cloud cover, and you can see high, mid and low cloud on this page, and then rain. And I'm not going to go into all of this, but you've got all of the wind information, convergence, and much more down here. Okay, that's SkySight. And then looking at the satellite picture, so again in the morning I'd be having a look at this and just checking that it marries up with the forecast. That gives you a bit more confidence about the day that you're going to go and fly in. And then we've got the various forecasts from a lot of gliding men around the country. So David Masson, he's based at Lasham, this is his forecast. He's looking at Saturday saying it actually looks pretty good. Maybe a slow blue 200 to 300k. SIDS weather, be worth checking this over the weekend. At the moment, all he's saying about the weekend is a tricky day forecast for Saturday, but I'd recommend checking that in the morning. And then lastly, Dunstable, Phil's weather brief. Again, check that in the morning. That will give an indication for those of you flying around Dunstable. And then my last recommendation during the day, once you set your task, is to go and look at the webcam and see what the conditions are in the area that you're planning to go flying in. And for that I use the Clement Allen's webcams page. Okay, that's the forecast for this weekend. Thank you for watching. If you haven't checked out last week's video, then you can do so by clicking the link above. And if you've got any recommendations for future videos, then don't hesitate to get involved in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Cheers.